Katie, let's start with you. There's a big bombshell this week. San Diego mayoral candidate Nathan Fletcher says he's leaving the Republican Party to become an independent. He says that he's tired of petty politics. But we all know that partisanship has existed for quite a long time. Why is he doing this now?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. He says that he basically reached a tipping point. He couldn't continue on in a party that he felt, as you said, was too partisan, that didn't allow him to form coalitions with members from the other party, basically wanted him to play games. The more cynical view of that would be that, or people would say the more realistic view of that, is that he was trailing in the polls. He wasn't catching up to Councilman Carl DeMaio, who is the front-running Republican at this point, and he needs to do something drastic. The primaries are just over 2 months away, and if he has any hope of making it into one of those top 2 slots, he needed to do something, and this was his big move to, as you said in your intro, divorce himself from the Republican Party and strike out on his own and hope to maybe pick up some of those voters who aren't comfortable with any of the other candidates.
Any sense on how this has helped him so far?
Well, there was one poll that was conducted. Channel 10 used Survey USA to do a poll, and it showed a net gain of about 8% for Fletcher, a bump of 8%. I have to say, though, there are people who have criticized that poll, the wording of the poll. They didn't compare Fletcher to any of the other candidates at that time. They simply asked, are you more likely to support him now? They also, the word support is important. They didn't say, are you more likely to vote for him? Are you more likely to support him? Which some people have said means it's not a really good indicator. It'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks if it really does have an impact, if more polls come out, if his fundraising goes up. Those sorts of indications might tell us whether or not this really will have an impact.
But Katie, he's been attacked by some Republicans in the power structure as being a turncoat and abandoning the party. But what does his move tell Republicans about their lack of tolerance of some of his views?
Well, he will say that he's not really leaving the Republican Party. They have moved too far right for him. And so that is his message, that, he should be able to be a moderate Republican, to be able to, form alliances or, with people across the aisle and still be a Republican and not feel like his party is looking down on him for that. Whether or not the Republican Party agrees with that or whether they take it to heart, I don't know. It's something, and David Brooks mentioned Nathan Fletcher in his New York Times column this morning, talking about how he is a more moderate person and maybe there's not room for him in the party anymore. So it'll be interesting. And David Brooks was asking whether or not Fletcher was essentially a test case. Are there going to be more people doing this? Are people going to vote for him now that he has done this? And is bringing more national attention to the race.
Well, parties exist to win. So the question is it going to cause the Republican Party to reflect more deeply? Should it, Kenny?
Well, if I was a Republican in power, I would reflect on it, certainly. But from what I can tell, they'd rather attack than reflect.
Well, and you have to say, though, too, the polls did not have Nathan Fletcher as a Republican up there. Carl DeMaio was leading the way.
That's right. The California Republican Party actually endorsed Carl DeMaio 2 weeks ago, and one has to think that his decision to switch parties, Fletcher's decision to switch parties, played into...
Right. Well, Fletcher told me in an interview that he didn't expect to get the endorsement. However, he went to them. He tried to, win it. It didn't happen. I had asked them, well, why didn't you switch before this endorsement came, if that's really something you weren't expecting to get. But he just, says that this has been building for him, and perhaps maybe that was the final straw. I don't know, or maybe it was more calculated.
We're going to have to close it there. Kenny Goldberg, Katie Orr, thank you for speaking.